Tom Cruise saves Hollywood again. So what are we talking about? You can see the headline right there. Tom Cruise has signed a development deal with Warner Brothers to develop and produce original and franchise films. This is big, Daniel. He hasn't worked with WB since Edge of Tomorrow. He actually got his breakout role with WB. Remember when he was dancing in his underwear in the movie Risky Business? So I sum up this news, Daniel, by saying, good job, Zaslav. Why? Because this was thanks to him. It was the co-chairs and CEOs of WB Motion Picture Group, Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdi, who were hired by Zaslav. And they were told by him when they were first hired, we are on a mission to bring Warner Brothers back. We have the best resources, storytelling IP, and talent in the business. And we need to bring Tom Cruise back to Warner Brothers. So they got the job done. And I personally have a lot of respect for David Zaslav because you and I always talk about when you see a bad movie, you say, didn't anybody look at the script when this was being written? Or didn't anybody look at this somewhere in the process and say, we know this is a bad movie? He seems like the guy that would do that because he canceled movies that were already made and ready to go. Batgirl and the one that I think is most tragic, Scoob 2. I think few people would have had the guts to do that. So I respect that. Now the thing, and also a lot of people make fun of him for this, but changing HBO Max to just Max, I thought that made a lot of sense because when you think HBO, brands are important. And to me, the HBO brand is premium content. The Sopranos, The Wire, Game of Thrones. And now the streaming service, especially after they acquired Discovery, I think you can watch reality shows and a ton of other stuff on HBO Max. And to me, that no longer, it tarnishes the HBO brand or dilutes it. And if you're trying to compete with Netflix, where a family will say, we need a streaming service to just watch a bunch of random stuff whenever we want, they think Netflix. Maybe they think Amazon Prime. Nobody thinks HBO. So to me, it makes sense to go with a more generic title. Max. Is there a better title out there? Maybe. But I think dropping HBO made a lot of sense. So far, we haven't really seen, and I'll let you go in a second, Zaslav deliver something. It's been a lot of what he isn't doing, right? He didn't deliver Batgirl. He didn't deliver Scoob 2. But I think getting Tom Cruise on board, whatever comes out of this relationship, which is not exclusive, by the way. He'll still work with other people. It just says he's going to develop some movies with them. Whatever comes out of this, this will be some of what Zaslav is delivering. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to actually see some of the results from Zaslav. Like even the Max decision, the way you explain it, that makes a lot of sense. But it was very easy to look at it and think it was stupid, in part because he inherited a bunch of stupidity, right? Because I think they went through HBO Go. I want to say HBO Now was a thing at one point, and HBO Max. Like there were just so many legacy things and so many shifts. Like I still have several apps on my phone that I accidentally open up sometimes that are the wrong one.
There was also a DC streaming service for all their DC related content, which is now folded into HBO Max or Max.
But I think this Tom Cruise thing makes sense. Tom Cruise is like, he actually makes a lot of good stuff. Has Tom Cruise been in many bad things?
I can't name him off the top of my head because there's the recency bias. If I just remember Top Gun Maverick, I remember Dead Reckoning Part 1, which underperformed. And a lot of people now, they're questioning Tom Cruise's selling power. But I think that movie came out a week before Barbenheimer, this massive meme that is unlike anything we've seen in previous years. So I think that's an anomaly. And we'll have to see how the next part of that movie does. What's intriguing, though, is it says he's going to do... Oh, and by the way, DD in the chat, Collateral is his best. Alun loves that movie.
I've never seen it.
I recommend it. We should talk about it sometime.
Yeah.
50% of people said they want to see us do deep dives into a particular movie and just spend an hour and a half talking about it. So we should do that sometime, maybe with Collateral. And Omar calls out his best movie, The Mummy, which I remember the trailer for that movie, they accidentally released it without the score. So there was no music in it. And there's one part where Tom Cruise is screaming. So it just sounds so bizarre. He's kind of screaming like a girl, like he's freaked out. And he's just like, ah! And without the music, it sounds so pathetic, I want to say.
Wait, Tom Cruise was in The Mummy?
Yeah, people forget about this. They tried to launch a dark, I think they called it the Dark Universe. It was going to be them bringing back all the Universal monsters. So he was in a Mummy reboot. Russell Crowe showed up in it as Mr. Hyde or Dr. Jekyll, to set up. So Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde was going to be the Nick Fury of the Dark Universe. And the Mummy
is
was
this
so
related
bad.
to the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie?
In a sense, it's a remake, or it's just another reboot of that IP.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I think they would have been, if they had waited a few more years, the Mummy would have had Brendan Fraser in it. Because at this point, there's no straight reboots. It's all Lego sequels. Now, the interesting thing is that they say he's going to do original films and franchises. So I think they're going to open up the WB books and say, Tom Cruise, pick a franchise and make a movie. And so I collected some of the most popular WB franchises. And the question, Daniel, if you could pick one of these to be spearheaded by Tom Cruise, and it says in the article, he's going to be producing them and starring. So he's going to be the creative force behind it. He's going to be in front of the camera too. Which franchise do you want to see him in? So many to choose from.
Mad Max.
Mad Max. You got
Blade
Aqua Teen
Runner?
Hunger Force.
Wait, there's actually a lot of good stuff on here, though.
Ace Ventura.
V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Yeah.
Iron Giant. I love the Iron Giant so much as a kid.
So when I put this all out in front of me, well, first off, it cannot be overstated that Edge of Tomorrow is one of those franchises.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility. The easy route is give him a DC movie, but I feel like you've got James Gunn in charge of that. And I think this is something where you want Tom Cruise to be the creative force behind it. I don't think we're looking at he's just starring in a movie that's helmed by someone else. Edge of Tomorrow, good option. But for some reason, when I laid all this out here, the one that called out to me where I just feel it in my bones, it's like a vision that came to me. I predict that in 4 years, we are going to see Westworld starring Tom Cruise.
Ooh.
Because I feel like they had the show, it started great, then kind of started to die, and it's ready for a reboot. Yeah, this is a good question from Oppo Lock. Which franchise can he physically run the most? He's very well known for his running ability. And I think the answer to that question would be Scooby-Doo. He could be Shaggy. He can repair the brand after all the damage done by Velma.
And in Scooby-Doo, they do the thing where they're running, but they stay in place for a little while. So that's extra steps you can get in.
What I would love to see is, we talked on a previous episode of Gil Reads Comics, we talked about the apocalyptic Scooby-Doo they did, where for a while they were putting out this series of comics where they took Flintstones, Scooby-Doo, and a couple of other franchises that used to be cartoons and took it really seriously, kind of set it in the real world. Like the Flintstones became this super depressing comic about Fred Flintstone just stuck in a rut, going nowhere in his career. And in Scooby-Doo's case, they made it this apocalyptic story. They should take that, put Tom Cruise in it. I would watch that. Scooby-Doo is this radioactive, mutated dog that's capable of speaking now. All right, Daniel. Anything else on Tom Cruise?
Philosophically, like in terms of this business decision, this has always been a sort of difference between like DC and Marvel, right? And that like Marvel has been much more templatized, whereas DC has sort of wanted to like let talent sort of run things in some cases, right? Like they would let like a true like artiste create a movie like the Batman or like Joker and like these movies. Do you see this as sort of consistent with that strategy?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's recognizing that the talent is what makes your stuff good. Like I've been waiting for Marvel to make an announcement of, here are some auteurs we're bringing in, or here's our get. This person's going to make a great movie. Instead, their brand has been the MCU, and you want to see more of the characters. Some people break through. Like, I think even the general public knows that James Gunn made Guardians of the Galaxy. But like, if Marvel announced, we got Tom Cruise to help us make a movie, I think that would get people interested in another Marvel movie. We got Christopher Nolan. He's coming in to help produce a Marvel movie and put his stamp of approval on it. So it does seem like we always talk about how you can tell certain movies, they just decided to make them good. Like, if you follow the development process for the Batman, at a certain point, they said, we are looking for an auteur filmmaker, which feels like a fancy way of saying, we're looking for a good director to make a good movie. And they just decided, let's do that. And it seems like Zaslav is doing that here. He's making just really what seem from the outside smart and obvious decisions. Don't release bad movies. Do release good movies and get people with a proven track record. So I think it's in line with what you're talking about.